On this channel, we provide useful programming information with practical code examples. This time, we're focusing on the set object. We will explain the set object with practical examples. Enabling subtitles will make the code descriptions easier to understand. Set is a built-in object used to handle collections of unique, non-duplicate values. It allows you to write duplicate elimination and existence checks more simply than with arrays, and makes set operations like union and intersection easier to implement. First, let's look at how to create a set, add and remove elements, check for existence, and get its size. Below is a basic pattern that creates a new set and demonstrates add, has, delete, and size. As shown in this code, set automatically removes duplicate primitive values, and you can get the number of elements using size. Set is iterable, so you can loop over it using for, of, or for each. The order is the order of insertion. Here are typical ways to use for, of, and for each. The callback signature for each is value, set, for compatibility with map, but in practice, you usually only need the first value argument. Here we show a simple technique for removing duplicates from an array, and how to convert a set back to an array. Below is an example of removing duplicates from an array by passing it through a set. This pattern is short and fast, so it is frequently used for removing array duplicates. It is especially effective for primitive values. Objects in a set are compared by reference, so different instances with the same content are treated as separate elements. The following code demonstrates what happens when you add objects to a set. Duplicate detection for objects is based on reference identity, so if you want to deduplicate based on object content alone, you will need to serialize or otherwise process them. Set uses the same value zero comparison rule to determine value equality. This method of comparison has the following features regarding numbers. Nan is considered equal to nan. Positive, plus O, and negative, minus 0, are not distinguished and are treated as the same value. Therefore, when you add these values to a set, the following behavior occurs. In normal comparison, nan equals nan. It returns false, but inside a set, all nan values are considered the same value. Plus 0 and minus 0 can be distinguished mathematically, but in a set, they are simply treated as 0. As a result, only one nan and one 0 remain in the set. The comparison rule of set is similar to object.is, but not exactly the same. Object.is plus 00 minus 0 returns false, but in a set, they are considered identical. Please take note of this difference. Set operations can be written more clearly using set. Below are common implementation examples. Here are examples of functions for union, intersection, and difference. Set operations can be written simply by using filters with the combination of set and arrays. When dealing with large datasets, the O(1) performance of has makes operations faster. The following example demonstrates how to use a set to find the difference between two arrays, an old list and a new list. This allows you to identify which elements were added and which were removed. This method is very convenient for detecting differences in ID lists, tag lists, and similar situations. It is simplest to use with primitive values. WeakSet is similar to set, but it uses weak references, allowing its items to be garbage collected. The following demonstrates basic usages of WeakSet. WeakSet can only hold objects and cannot be iterated over. Below are examples of the constraints of WeakSet. It only holds objects and cannot be iterated. WeakSet is useful for temporarily tracking the presence of objects, but you cannot enumerate its elements or get its size. When deciding whether to use a set, it is important to understand its performance characteristics and the nature of your data. Has, add, and delete typically operate at nearly 0.1 performance on average. Therefore, in scenarios where you frequently check for existence or remove duplicates, set is often more advantageous than arrays. Be careful if you want to deduplicate objects based on their contents, values. Since set compares by reference, a practical way is to use IDs or other keys, or serialize objects into primitive values before using sets when value-based comparison is needed. Set is particularly useful for improving code readability for small to medium-sized collections. On the other hand, if you're handling a very large number of elements or frequently converting between arrays and sets, it is recommended to actually benchmark and test. Set is convenient, but if you are not aware of its specifications, you may be puzzled by unexpected behaviors. Here are some typical points to watch out for. Objects are compared by reference, so even if their content is the same, different objects are not considered duplicates. Set maintains insertion order, but you cannot access elements by index like arrays. If you want to use index-based access, convert the set to an array first. WeakSet cannot be enumerated and can only store objects. Note that its applications are limited. nan is treated as the same value, and +0 and -0 are not distinguished. This is due to the same value zero comparison rule. Set is a convenient data structure that allows you to handle collections of unique values intuitively. You can use it to remove duplicates from arrays, perform fast existence checks, or implement set operations like union and intersection with simple and readable code. On the other hand, since objects are compared by reference, extra measures are needed if you want to judge equality based on their contents. By understanding these characteristics and using them appropriately, set becomes a powerful choice for improving code readability and maintainability. The source code for this video can be downloaded from the official website. If you like, please visit the URL in the description to aid your learning. Thank you for watching. This channel provides practical and useful information about programming. Subscribe to the channel and let's deepen our programming skills together.